Right, cool. Can we see my screen? Salia or perfect. Lovely. Thank you guys. So, training beyond burn, the science-backed way to train smarter, maximize every session and build results that last. I do apologize, guys, as well. I've got a chest infection at the moment, so I cannot stop coughing and it's very, very irritating. So, I do apologize. So, how quickly do we build muscle? So, we're going to go into why strength training matters, cardio versus weights. As you know, we pretty much don't do any cardio on the Elevate program, and I'll be explaining why. Muscle chain and movements, rep ranges, hypertrophy, progressive overload and failure, programming, why I program in the way that I do program, and how you should potentially program yourself if after this process you want to carry on your own. Programming and splits, like I said, muscle growth science, advanced techniques, common myths and mistakes, and final takeaways and outcomes. So this is all going to be based around training today. Like I said, you'll be going onto a new training block next week. So really take as much of this into account to make sure that your last kind of 4 weeks are as optimal as they possibly can be. So, how long does it take to build muscle? A lot of people think it's a lot quicker than it is, and it's very, very difficult to build muscle. Building muscle, especially as a female, is very hard. So, you're going to get initial adaptations within the first 2 to 4 weeks. So, the point that we're at the moment. So, strength feels easy before visible growth. So, a lot of you in your feedback saying you feel stronger, you're lifting heavier. That is pretty normal. Now, visible hypertrophy, and what I mean by that is muscles that we can see, or like we could see under a microscope essentially, would essentially appear after 6 to 8 weeks of consistent training. So this isn't a quick thing. The reason why a lot of us think, oh my God, I can see my shoulder muscles, oh my God, I can see my leg muscles, is because we're getting leaner. So it's not necessarily because the muscle is growing. And I know that's probably not what you want to hear, but it is the truth. Optimal measurables of muscle growth occur over 12 to 24 weeks. So it's actually past the point of this program that you would see measurable muscle growth patterns. The reason why a lot of the time we feel stronger and we can lift heavier is due to confidence and experience level. So we're starting to lift more weights, and then over time we're thinking, oh, we can lift heavier and we can lift heavier. It's not necessarily measurable growth, it's more of a mindset issue essentially. And this is why working to failure and the things that I'm going to talk about today is really important, because a lot of it is mindset. So rates of growth. So it's always going to depend on intensity and frequency. It's massively going to depend on your nutrition. So like we said before, if we're not eating enough protein, it's going to massively impact our strength gains. That how much we sleep, because we actually build our muscle in our sleep. So we don't build the muscle when we're training. The muscle building actually happens when we recover. And that's why recovery is very important. Age and hormonal status. Again, the younger we are, the quicker it is to build muscle. Again, estrogen has a big part of that as well. So the older we get in terms of metabolic decline, which we obviously spoke about last week, that also has an impact. And then experience level. The more experienced you are, the less muscle you build, which seems very unfair. But when you first start training, again, it's an adaptation process. The body is essentially going into some type of shock because it has never trained before. So it'll build back muscle fibers a lot quicker. And that's why I can't emphasize enough that consistency, especially at the start of a journey, is critically important, because if not, you are wasting what we call the new beginner gains, where you build muscle very quick if you're very inconsistent. And that's why I bang on to you all about consistency is king. So muscle growth rate facts. So an average natural female trainee, and I mean like someone not on PEDs, performance enhancing drugs, somebody who's not supplemented, is going to gain anywhere from 0.25 to 0.5 pound of lean muscle per week. That is not a lot of muscle. Men roughly gain 0.5 to 1 pound. So men double the rate of muscle growth over females. Beginners experience faster growth. Like I said, what we call new begins. And experienced lifters see slower incremental progress. So the longer that you train, the more years that you train, the slower your progress is. And that's why it can become really tough, like 6 to 12 months in a journey, especially if you're not being coached by somebody, when you're not really seeing strength gains. Progressive overload is harder. And that's why we take things like rest week. Salia, you've just taken a deload week, so I can just see you. And that, I remember when Salia first took a deload week with me, he was like, oh, I don't expect to be lifting very heavy when I come back. And I was like, well, actually, you'll probably hit some PBs and you'll probably be stronger. And she didn't really believe me. And what happened? She was stronger and she hit some PBs. And that is because, again, the body's gone into a period of rest and recovery, and it can be very, very beneficial. So for long-term clients, I do things like deload weeks and rest weeks to help see an increase in lean muscle growth as well. Myths about muscle growth. I'll get bulky if I lift heavy. It is very, very hard to get bulky as a natural female, as somebody not on performance enhancing drugs. A lot of influencers that you see, most people who do competitions or set up on stage are on PEDs. Like your favorite influencers are probably on PEDs. Like it's very, very common in the industry. People just think you have to be this big masculine male bodybuilder to look a certain way. It's not the case. I have friends that use them. It's very common in the industry, and people who have got visibly a lot of muscle, not all the time, but a lot of the time they're on performance enhancing drugs. You will not look like that from training consistently. We have natural levels, we've got lower testosterone levels. It's very difficult for us to build a decent amount of muscle. It is also virtually impossible, unless you are a new beginner, to build muscle and lose fat concurrently. So people will say, I want to tone up, I want to lose fat, I want to tone up. I hear it all the time. It's the majority of the reason that women come to me. And will you look more toned? Yes, because you're losing body fat. That's essentially it. And when you're strength training, you're retaining a lot of your muscle mass. If you want to build a considerable amount of muscle, for example, you want big glutes, which a lot of women want, you will need to go in a period of reverse dieting and muscle building. Sally, sorry, I'm going to mention you a few times because I can see you here. But for example, like Sally is on 2,500 calories a day. We're in a reverse diet, we're in a muscle building phase because in order to get the physique that she wants, we just can't keep dieting forever. Um, I need to train every day. So this is actually very impactful. So muscles grow during rest. So a huge mistake that I'll see people doing is overtraining. 3 times a week is optimal for most women. The reason why I have you guys on 3 times a week, not 5 times a week, is consistency and adherence. You'd be far better training 3 times a week every single week for 12 months than you would training 5 days a week for 3 months, because consistency is obviously the key. Um, can target fat loss by training a specific muscle? You can't. So you cannot spot reduce fat. If you want a leaner stomach, you cannot do abs to create a leaner stomach. Yeah, you will grow muscle under that, obviously, your abdominal area. And when you lose fat, it will be more toned and defined. But we cannot spot reduce an area. Yeah, so overall training is optimal because if you want to lose stomach fat, you would be better putting more emphasis into your leg day. Why? Because the more muscle we have, the more metabolically active we are. So if you've got bigger quads, bigger glutes, that is burning more calories at rest, which subsequently is going to help you lose your belly fat. So that is why we don't target a muscle, we don't target an area with overall strength, and then obviously the nutrition is going to drive the fat loss. So if you think of it as the nutrition driving the fat loss, and you think about it, the training sculpting the body, they're two separate things. We don't train to burn fat. Yeah, we train to create a physique. The nutrition is going to essentially burn the fat. If we want to lose fat, we'll be in a deficit. If we want to maintain, we'll be in a maintenance. If we want to grow muscle, we'll be in a surplus. And this is why, especially for long-term coaching, and this is not me trying to convince you guys to go long-term coaching, but it came with Sally, for example. She came to me wanting to tone up, get an athletic physique. Our first block of what we were concentrating on was fat loss. So we did 12 to 16 weeks of fat loss. Then we started her reverse diet. So now she'll spend a big period of time, 6 months plus, in a reverse diet, getting her calories nice and high, 2,500 calories, minimal fat gain, strength gain, building loads of muscle. When Sally next goes into a deficit, her deficit calories won't be 1,600, they'll be 2,000 because we've metabolically built her up to a higher amount of calories. And then when she goes back into a deficit, fat loss is easier because the calories are a lot higher. Adherence is going to be very easy. But then when she also does get to the point of happy with her physique, she'll be maintaining it on a very high amount of food. Whereas what people do, and what women do especially, they go into extreme diets, they're not consistent, they come out, they go into extreme diets, and they constantly like this, and they can never get to the point of building a physique and something that they can maintain because they might be happy with the body, but if they're eating 1,200 calories, it's not going to last forever. So this is why programming is very important, training is very important, and being coached correctly is very, very important. Oh. Um, why this training matters. So most people train hard but not effectively. So they will go in, They will, beat themselves to a pulp, but they're not necessarily training effectively. Fat loss does not equal sweating more. Sweating more does not mean fat loss. Does it mean you're burning more calories? Potentially. But we all know that calorie burn in the moment of exercise is not critical because it's about what our metabolism is doing on the other 23 hours of the 24-hour clock. Body composition changes come from muscle and energy demand. And I'm basically going to teach you today how the body adapts because your body adapts over time. Cardio versus weights, the real difference, if I had a pound for every time everybody asked me why I wasn't programming Stairmaster and why I wasn't programming hours of cardio, like I mentioned on the metabolism presentation, cardio is calorie burn during the session. You will burn a lot of calories doing cardio. 45 minutes of running will beat 45 minutes of strength training when it comes to calorie burn every day of the week. But weights create a metabolic change after the session. Cardio improves heart health. So is cardio beneficial? Yes. I've got runners in this program, got marathon runners, got cyclists. Like, am I going to tell anyone to stop cycling, to stop running? No. Do we want to put maybe a bit more emphasis on somebody from an athletic background onto strength training? Yes, I've just had a client in one-to-one for 6 months who was an ultra marathon runner who was running 5 times a week. We dropped that down to two because she had so much muscle wastage from 20 plus years of cardio that we needed to focus a little bit more on strength training and get her body in a better position. But cardio is still beneficial for cardiovascular health. Weights determine muscle turn, curves, and firmness. You will never ever get the body that you want from simply doing cardio because you will just become a smaller version of your current existing body, which I did some visuals on that on the metabolic presentation. Fat loss is driven by long-term energy outputs, not single workouts. So I'll talk about cardio and when we do use cardio, but for me, the best form of cardio is walking. Because if you think about running, for example, right, like everyone's probably tried to do the couch to 5K once when they want to lose a little bit of fat, me included, all them years ago. Um, when you run, especially if you're unfit, your heart rate is probably going into the 170s and the 180 beats per minute. All your body sees that is stress. It doesn't know whether you're running away from a tiger, you're running because you're trying to lose fat. That is stress and that is cortisol. So you want the minimal amount of stress and cortisol on your body as much as possible. Say you're doing a big run, boom, heart rate goes up to 170. You might sustain that for 30 to 60 seconds and then you've got to slow down because you're unfit. Your heart rate's going up, down, up, down. What's happening? Calorie burn is going up, down, up, down. So you'd be far better sustaining a heart rate for a longer period of time. How do we do that? Walking, yeah, walking 130, 140 beats per minute, get a bit of a pace on, don't walk lazily, but you'll consistent have a medium amount of heart rate. Your body won't go into stress, your cortisol won't spike. It won't completely deplete you of energy. It's not going to make you ravenously hungry where you can't stick in your deficit. And that's why step count, and for those clients who are consistently hitting the step count each week, you will get a better result. More effort needs to be made on step count. Um, and that's why with metabolic adaptation, which I spoke about last week, where your body slowly starts to metabolically adapt to your calories, that's why I'm putting steps up by 1,000 a week because it bridges that gap and it's the easiest thing to do. So, why weights are superior for fat loss? Muscle is metabolically active tissue. Again, I know I'm repeating myself a little bit from last week, but I really want to drill this into you guys. The more muscle we have, the higher daily calorie burn. Strength training improves insulin sensitivity, so the way that we react to sugars. And losing fat improves insulin sensitivity. So people go, oh, I'm insulin resistant, I can't lose fat. To become insulin sensitive, you just need to lose fat. It preserves lean mass during calorie deficits and it creates a tighter, leaner look versus skinny fat. Again, I don't really like using the word skinny fat, but it's something that people can relate to. I get a lot of clients coming to me completely in healthy BMI range, want to lose fat, want to tone up. What do I need to do? Get onto the strength training. Why cardio should come after strength? If you do want to do cardiovascular activity, you already do. We have different energy demands, and our body utilizes energy stores in different ways. So we have something called ATP, then we have glycogen, and then we have fat burn. So if you think about it in three modules, you have ATP, glycogen, fat burn. When you train, your body doesn't go, right, I'm going to utilize fat as a source of energy because fat is a really shit source of energy to use. What does it use? Glycogen, which is carbohydrate. That is why carbohydrate targets are important, and we can't just be on low carb diets or thinking, oh, let's just not bother with carbohydrates because they're our primary source of fuel. So it's very, very important. So when we start with cardio first, we're going to use up all our glycogen, all our carbohydrates, and then we go to do strength training and we're using fat as a source of fuel. It's a rubbish source of fuel. So if we think about it, cardio burns more calories per minute than strength training. If we are wanting optimal fat loss, when should we be considering cardio? After the strength, because we're going to use all our glycogen, all our ATP, all our really good energy source for strength training, maximum amount of effort. We're going to get maximum muscle building potential. And when you've used all your glycogen, which takes 20 to 30 minutes, and you move on to fat stores, you're in cardio, which is a higher rate of calorie burn per minute when you're burning the fat. See how it makes sense? Whereas, you shouldn't be using all your fat stores on training, and then you try and do cardio and you're completely depleted. So cardio after taps into fat oxidation pathways. So it is always beneficial if you're going to do it. And by cardio, it could even mean a speed walk. It could be the same as if you wanted to do something. But we don't need excessive amounts of cardio because if we are wanting to lose fat, our metabolism is doing that for us and the other 23 hours of the day. So the best order, lift, move, recover. So if you are a runner, if you do like cycling, if you do like anything like that, prioritize your strength and do that afterwards, especially if your goal is fat loss. You've got to think, what is your primary goal? If you want to run a marathon, your primary goal is running, isn't it? So you're going to use that as over strength training. However, when it comes to cardio, and people have been in cardio for a long time, it causes muscle wastage. Running, cycling, it actually speeds up the process of you losing muscle mass. If you look at male cyclists or male runners, they're exceptionally lean, very, very little muscle mass, and they may look like they've got great shoulders and great biceps because they've not got any fat on their body. Yeah. So it's not necessarily they've got a lot of muscle, they've just not got a lot of fat. Post-exercise oxygen consumption. So we call this EPOC. This is also known as what we call the afterburn effect, and what obviously I talk about. So your body requires extra oxygen post-training, and that energy is used to repair muscles, restore your ATP, restore your glycogen, and higher after strength and steady cardio. So this increases calorie burn for 24 to 48 hours. You do not get this from cardiovascular training. So once you stop running, you don't get this. Once you put a dumbbell down, you continue to burn calories because your body is then rushing to repair that broken down muscle fiber. That requires more oxygen, that requires more calories. This is why you need to spread your workouts out. And I don't want anyone doing Friday, Saturday, Sunday, because if you do Monday, Wednesday, Friday, from Monday's training session, you're going to be burning through till Wednesday. From Wednesday, you're going to be burning through till Friday. From Friday, you're going to be burning through till Sunday. So 7 days a week, your advantage is going to be EPOC. You're going to be on a higher metabolic rate 7 days a week. So you don't need really more than 3 training sessions, but you need to make sure that them 3 training sessions, you're working to failure, which I'm going to come on to, you're consistent, you're spreading them out, and you recovered well, and you're eating your carbs, and you're sleeping well, and you're drinking your water. There's a lot to juggle here. And this is why when people talk about worried about getting bulky, I've been trying to get bulky for 7 years, and I've been ticking all my boxes. It's not going to happen, okay? Um, Understanding movement chains. So muscles don't work in isolation, majority of the time. The body works in chains and training patterns is going to be far superior than random exercises. Going to the gym and doing body pump on Monday, spin on Wednesday, combat on Friday, unfortunately, you're never going to get the body that you want. And I'm not just saying this out of opinion, I'm saying this out of absolute fact. Um, the way that you are programmed, every single program that has been put out on the Elevate program has been very carefully curated. I'm not just thinking, oh, let's do a shoulder press on Wednesday, let's just do this on Friday, because everything works in chains and everything works in patterns, which I'll obviously explain. And when it comes to recovery, which I'll explain as well, our muscles recover very quickly as women in comparison to men. So we need more training volume. To grow a pair of glutes or to grow your bum, you need to be training at least twice a week. So every training session that has been programmed for all of you guys, depending whether you're at home or you're at the gym, they all have a chain and pattern. And I'll explain how I build this chain and pattern so you understand, but they're not random structures. And obviously that's why I hate gym classes and that's why I hate shit online coaching for people who can't program and they don't know the science behind it, which there's a lot of people that don't. Um, Funny, when I did my PT course, I did an 8 week online course and I learned nothing. No, enough of what I'm going to talk to you about today is learned from my training, from my actual personal training course. Um, so when we talk about muscles, we've got something called the anterior chain. You might have heard me say posterior or anterior chain. Anterior chain just means muscles on the front of the body. So these are things like your quads, chest, shoulders, front delts, abdominals, hip flexors, and these are all going to be dominant during pushing and knee-driven movements. So we need a balance. We need a certain amount of movements that we push and certain amount of movements that we pull. If you think about it, most of what we call a push movement is an anterior chain. So by that I mean if you're going to push a dumbbell from your chest, that's push movement. It's your chest muscle. If you're going to push a dumbbell over your head, that's going to be a shoulder movement. You might have heard of push and pull movements. Most push movements are anterior chain of the body. Yeah. You might have heard of people doing a push day or a pull day. Yeah. It's either an anterior or a posterior day. So they're your muscles on your front of your body. Then we've got the posterior, which is the back of the body, which is the same picture, which is my admin error. So I apologize. But these are your glutes, your hamstrings, your back, your lats, your upper back, your calves, and these are key for posture, power, and fat loss. Your posterior chain is a lot lightly stronger than your anterior. When, as women in day-to-day life, do we think, oh, yeah, I got the shopping bags, let's just do 10 shoulder press? No, we have to be very, very considerate with our training because a lot of women are very weak in a lot of areas because we don't use those muscles. You might have men that in construction jobs or, labouring jobs or whatever it is where they'll use more of those muscles. Women don't. So that's why I'm very passionate about women training upper body, women training back, because that's why you see a lot of the older generation hunched over, can't walk because they've never trained. Yeah. And then your back, if you think about it, pulling movements, bent over row, you're pulling, lat pull down, you're pulling. Yeah. Pull movements. Um, a Romanian deadlift essentially would be a pull movement because you're pulling the bar up. So when we're thinking about push and pulling, it took me ages to get my head around this when back in the day when before I started coaching, I was like, I don't get what push is. I don't get what pull means. Are you pushing weight towards you, away from you, sorry, or you're pulling weight towards you? That essentially determines whether it's push or pull. When it comes to programming, as you can imagine, we have got exercise selection to consider. I've got experience level to consider, and any injuries to consider, equipment variability, and I need to take somebody and consider all of that and build them a program balancing every single muscle out on the body, including their wants and needs on areas they want to develop. Programming is the one of the most consuming parts, time consuming parts of my job. And it's not just the fact of click and push a button. There's a lot to consider. And this is why, personally, for me, this is why I've always had a coach. Not that I don't know these things and I can't program myself, but like having somebody else look at my physique non-emotionally and tell me what I need. And that's obviously why coaching is important. Push versus pull. Going ahead of myself. Again, push, chest press, shoulder press, squats, pull, rows, pull downs, deadlifts. Balanced programs prevent injury. You need a balanced program. You don't want your back to be super strong and your shoulders to be really weak because when you do a bent over row, you could injure your shoulders. You don't just want to be, women who just think, oh, I just want to train legs. I never want to train upper body because I don't want to be bulky. I could shake them because in order to do a good Romanian deadlift, in order to do a good glute cable kickback, in order to do a good hip thrust, you need a good, strong upper body because it's going to support those movements. And that's why we need everything in balance. There's not a single client that would ever just train lower with. Everyone's got at least one full upper day. So everything is super, super essential. If we've got a really, really weak glutes, for example, a weak bum, we're going to get back pain because our glutes are actually the muscle supporting our back. So yes, of course, it comes to aesthetics, and that's why the most people train for aesthetics, me included. But when we look about it at how actually we want a quality of life, I don't know about you, but I don't want to be hunched over with a walking stick when I'm 80. No, thank you. And this is all going to prevent that. Rep range is explained. Reps are just obviously the movement themselves. So you'll notice a few different rep ranges depending on what movement you've got. So strength is 1 to 5. So if we're thinking about, sorry, someone in the chat here. Sally's put Sophie's programming is elite. I strength trained for years and never felt my glutes. Now I feel like my glutes and they're growing. Thank you, Salia. Um, yeah, so strength training is 1 to 5 reps. So this is force training. If we're thinking powerlifters, world's strongest man, all that type of stuff, low rep ranges. Um, this is majority to do with like British weightlifting. So I used to do British weightlifting, used to do strength competitions. It's not necessarily aesthetically driven. Then you've got hypertrophy, which is what we all do, which is anywhere from 6 to 12. I would say 6 to 15. This is going to be the most optimal for muscle growth. And then you've got muscular endurance slash cardio, so 15 plus reps. Anything over 15 reps, maybe 20 reps, is cardiovascular training. So great for runners. You might know high, low weight, high reps. That might people will train like that for cardiovascular endurance, for athletic performance, not necessarily for aesthetics. Um, you cannot tone a muscle. You can make a muscle bigger, you can make it smaller, you cannot tone a muscle, you cannot make a muscle bulky. All of this is bullshit. We either grow it or we make it smaller. Doing a lighter load for more reps won't suddenly tone a muscle. It will just mean you grow muscle slower, which why would you want to do that? Because it's hard enough to grow muscle anyway, so we might as well grow it as quick as we can. Most body recomposition lives in 6 to 12. So most of you will be programmed within 6 to 12. Beginner clients or people that have like literally no idea, never lifted a dumbbell up, I prefer to do higher reps and lower weight. That is just from an injury perspective. I don't want to be saying, right, do your six rep max on a shoulder press if they can't lift correctly, because they're probably going to get injured. And then the more advanced my clients get, I can be more comfortable with putting them on a lower rep range, knowing that they can hit failure without causing injury. It's very hard on you guys because you're in a group coaching. I don't look at training videos. We're not looking at like specific progressive overload. Like I'm talking it from probably this is more of a one-to-one point of view, like how specifically we look at these things. Um, but we are all mainly in hypertrophy. Anyway, why is hypertrophy the goal? So muscle gives shape, not bulk. Like I said, we can't make a muscle, we can't tone a muscle. It increases your metabolic rate, it improves glucose handling and your insulin resistance, and it makes fat loss sustainable. And it also prevents regain after dieting. If you diet without muscle, good luck because you will gain that fat back so quickly. And, people won't believe me if I say, oh, yeah, I can, I'm on 2,700 calories a day. What? How? Like, used to be massive. And it's because of metabolic conditioning and training my muscles and training my metabolic system. It can be possible for everybody. It's just not simply going to happen in 8 weeks. Compound versus accessory. So there's different types of movement. So movements is we've got different patterns. So we've got push, we've got pull, we've got horizontal push, vertical pull. Like a vertical pull will be a lat pull down, a vertical push would be a shoulder press, a horizontal pull will be a bent over row. So there's multiple different ways that we can section down these exercises. You don't need to know all of this in order to train. Someone's popped. I wonder how hard it should feel before I stop my rep, not having lifted before, I haven't experienced. Great question. And there's going to be some lovely videos of me training in this presentation. I'm going to show you how hard you should be lifting. I'm going to show you all the different patterns of lifting. So don't worry, I will come on to that because that is very, very common and it's very um obvious to ask as well. So compound versus accessory. Compound is multiple joints and muscles, and accessory is single muscle focus. Both are necessary but not equal. We do both. Compound is very important because it utilizes multiple muscle groups. So when it comes to training frequency, and say, for example, you're all training 3 times a week, you wouldn't get great results from me just programming a load of accessory movements. Because if we're just working our bicep for one set, our tricep for one set, our shoulder for one set, imagine how much volume we would need to do to hit that muscle twice per week when all the movements are isolated. If we think of a compound movement, we're using multiple muscle groups. If you're standing up and doing a barbell shoulder press, you are utilizing your core, your shoulder, your rear delts, your biceps, your tricep. There's multiple muscles that are required to force that weight up. And this is why I hate fixed machines. I hate fixed machines. And most women stay on fixed machines because they're safe and they've got a little picture showing them how to do it and they don't feel embarrassed. But if you're going in the gym, you're sitting on a fixed machine and you're like this, how less impactful is that? than a dumbbell or a barbell shoulder press. So I have always been a big advocate for free weights. So compound versus accessory, we need them both, and they're both different. So if we're looking at compounds, again, they recruit more muscle mass. Why? Because we're using more muscles to move the weight. It creates a higher hormonal response, increases our testosterone. It's going to burn more energy per set. Because if you think about it, if you're going and doing a bicep curl where you're just training your bicep, or if you're going to do in a bent over underhand row where you're using your bicep, your tricep, your back muscles, you're using multiple muscle groups. You're burning more calories in the same amount of time. Yeah. It doesn't mean that bicep curls we don't need them. Yes, we do. But we need to really focus on executing really good compound lifts, especially when we're only training 3 times a week. It's going to build strength foundations. It's also very practical. Compound training is the type of things we need in day-to-day life to pick things up, to move things about, to keep our body moving. Examples, squat, presses, rows, hinges, deadlifts, anything that is a multiple muscle group will be a compound. And I program a lot of compound movements, especially for beginners. Compound examples, again, squats, deadlifts, RDLs, bench rows, pull-ups, overhead press. The absolute staples. The staples will always win over all these stupid videos that I see with doing donkey kickbacks and these banded walks and all this shit that we see online. Compounds will win every single time. Don't trust the influencers. um, accessories. Accessories use higher reps. Why do we use higher reps? So, like, for example, shoulder press, we might do 8 to 10. For a bicep curl, we might do 12 to 15. Why? Because they fatigue faster. So you want less joint stress you're going to have less joint stress at higher repetitions. And if you're doing an isolated movement, let's say a tricep extension, your elbow is going to get a lot of joint stress. So we don't want to be a higher weight straight out the bat. They also fatigue very quick. So if you do tricep extension or you got them on your program, you might do one set at 10 to 12 and the second set you can't get past 6. So that's why we do lower weight, higher reps, because they fatigue too quickly. It's going to improve muscle connection. On isolation movements, it's hard to connect mind to muscle connection. Again, that's a topic in itself. That's why a lot of women struggle to feel it in the glutes because they're going too heavy and the quads are going to take over or the hamstrings are going to take over. When you're doing isolation, you have to really think about mind to muscle connection. And if you've got a lighter weight at higher reps, you're giving yourself more time to achieve that. It supports compound lifts. So if we've got an underdeveloped part of the body, biceps are weak, triceps are weak, calves are weak, it's going to affect our other lifts. If anybody's watched my part 2 of my leg day on Instagram, you will watch. If you haven't watched it, you better bloody watch it. But I train calves at the end of that video, and you never see women training calves on a glute day. But I explain in the video why if you have weak calves, you will struggle to build your glutes. No one talks about it because everyone just wants to put videos up of their ass out in tight little shorts to gain views. Yeah. So calf training is important for glute development. And it's used to bring up weak areas. So isolation really, really helps bring up weak areas in the body. I do a lot of glute work now because back in the day, I hated training glutes. I still do, but I just kind of ignored it. And now I realize it affects my back and it makes my back weak. So it's a big part of my training now, and I do a lot of isolation towards it. Accessory examples, leg curls, leg extensions, cable kickbacks, lateral raises, bicep curls, tricep pushdowns, hamstring curls. And I will see so much, and this isn't me being mean, but women going in the gym, they'll go on the leg press for the leg extension for a bit, and then they'll do the hamstring curl, and then they might go and do the shoulder press machine. And the people want to do them because they're easier. Yeah. It's a lot easier to do a leg extension than it is a barbell squat. It just is. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't have leg extensions, but like getting attached to machines and just wanting machines or just wanting really enjoying lateral raises and hating shoulder press, you're not abnormal. That's normal. Lateral raise is a lot easier because it's an isolated muscle. You're going to enjoy it more. You're going to dislike your compounds more because they're more effective. Warm-up sets explained. This is where it's potentially going to get a little bit technical, so I don't want you all to be too worried. Obviously, if you want to, you probably eat this up, but I did want to obviously go over it as well with everybody. So for you guys on Elevate, all your sets are there. So some of you will see a W, which means warm up, and then you'll see all your sets there. For one-to-one clients or more advanced clients, they will only see 2 sets they won't see 4 sets majority of the time. Depends obviously on the exercise itself. Because when I've trained somebody for over like 1 to 2 years, they will be able to do their warm-up sets without me having to tell them to do their warm-up sets. They will know how to do the warm-up sets. They will know how much they should be lifting for warm-up sets. And the only thing that I care about is their working sets. That's all I need to see is their hard sets. Your warm-up sets are not counted towards growth. They're going to prepare your joints for your nervous system, gradually increase load, prevent injury, and improve performance on working sets. And again, I don't want you guys to get too worried about this because you might see 4 sets and you might go, right, I've got the leg press. I'm going to do 50K, 60K, 70K, 80K. And you will think, oh, them two first are warm-up sets. That is okay as a beginner because you are essentially learning and you're also needing to warm yourself up. And I will show you some examples of this. But for me, for example, for the leg press, I know have got this as a written example. If I'm doing, I don't know, 200 kilos for my working set, I might do my first set might be 50 kilos, my second set might be 60 kilos, big rest, go straight up to 200 kilos. Because I'm an experienced level that I know I can lift the 200 kilos. And the first two warm-up sets, if I was doing 180, 190, 200, I probably wouldn't be able to lift the 200 because I'm pre-fatigued. Yeah. So when we're thinking about warm-up sets, and this is what I want you to consider with your next training block, if you have 4 sets of shoulder press, your first 2 sets want to be 40 to 50% of your working load. If you do a 10 kilo shoulder press, your first 2 reps, 4 or 5 kilos. And you might think, well, why? Why wouldn't I go 8, 9 kilos and then 10? Because your body will be tired. Yeah. Your working sets, they need to be hard hitting sets. They need to be working till failure. And if you are constantly warming up too heavy, you'll struggle to progressive overload. Because if you think about the comparison, say I was doing a shoulder press. So for example, on my shoulder press, oh sorry, someone's just trying to join. I did, I don't know, let's say 20 kg dumbbells. That's my working set. If I did 18 kilos, 19 kilos, and then went to 20, I might only get 4 reps out. Whereas I know I can do 20 kilos for 12 reps. But the only reason I can do that is because my warm-up sets are light enough to be able to be warm, but not fatigued. So don't warm up too heavy, is what I'm trying to say. If anyone moves into one-to-one after this will be far deeper explained and I'll be giving you more protocols when it comes to warm-up sets. But for now, that is just something to consider. Don't pre-fatigue. Do you need warm-up sets for every exercise? No. Yeah. You will probably warm up for every exercise, especially when you're pretty new. And for longer term clients, I call them feeler sets, or I will write 1 to 2 feeler sets, which is a bit different to a warm-up set. If you think about it, right, guys, you say you're training legs, you go into the gym, you're cold, right? You do your warm-up sets, you do 2 warm-up sets in your first exercise, you do your working sets, you do it again. Do you think by exercise 4, your legs need to be warmed up? No. You've already got your blood pumping, you're already training, you don't need to warm up. What I like to do personally is like a feeler set. So say, for example, I've got a Romanian deadlift as my 4th exercise. If I go in and do 2 warm-up sets, I'm just causing more fatigue. I'm making my working sets a lot harder. So I will just say, for example, get the barbell with no weight on it, just go through 10 to 12 reps, just to get the movement pattern, mind to muscle connection right. I'm trying to hit my hamstrings and glutes, and then bang, straight going in with the weight. I don't need to mess around with warm-up sets. Stop warming up for every single exercise because you will be warm. Just do a feeler set, get straight into it. Warm-up sets are primarily for compound lifts, heavy loads, or complex movements. You don't need to warm up your biceps to do a bicep curl. You're going to be okay. Okay. You could just do one nice little set to get the engagement. It's the purpose of warm-up sets is to prepare joints, muscles, and your nervous system, and it's to prevent injury, not pre-fatigue. If you're doing your warm-up and think, right, I'm ready for my working set, and you're tired, you've warmed up too hard. I will always say 40 to 50% of working load. And by working load, I just mean your working set. So the heavy set that you're going to do. If you're going to go try and do 10 kg shoulder press, warm up with 5s. Don't warm up with 8s. Yeah. Squat, bench press, Romanian deadlifts, 1 to 3 warm-up sets. So you want a decent amount of warm-up for those type of lifts. Your accessory movements, you don't need much warm-up. I have to say all of this with a pinch of salt, guys, because I can't see your movements. If I have a client and they send me a video of them squatting and it's bad, it's not good, I will deload them, add in an extra warm-up set, tell them the protocols. Obviously, that is just the difference between one-to-one and group coaching. And that's why I don't want to say, don't do your warm-up sets, because I don't want anyone to get injured because I can't see if you're doing it correctly. You only know that, not me. How warm-up sets should be structured. So again, start light, gradually increase weight towards working set. 1 to 3 sets is adequate for most compound exercises, not accessory. We don't need 3 warm-up sets to do a bicep curl. Avoid 4 to 5 increasing sets that tie you before your working set. Example, leg press, bench press, heavy fatigue before actual set is less growth stimulus. Focus on form, range of motion, and muscle engagement, especially for fixed machines, guys. Things like leg press, leg extension, hamstring curl, anything that's fixed, it's hard to hurt yourself because it is a fixed machine. Free weight is more dangerous. So, like a barbell Romanian deadlift, you've got far more chance of putting your back out in that than you're doing a lat pull down. So, consider that, yeah. When you're doing free weights, go through the movement pattern, see how it feels, look at your elbows, your shoulders, does it feel right? Use your common sense. If something feels a bit off, if something's got a twinge, don't do it. Don't do it. Again, injury is one of the worst things that you can do. Again, for advanced clients, these are usually not tracked or logged. Like if I got my program from my coach, it'd say Romanian deadlift, it'd just have 8 to 10, 10 to 12, and it'd have one and D, one working set, one drop set. Yeah, he doesn't care about what I'm warming up with. That's up to me. Um, when can warm-up sets be minimal? Later in the workout, like I said, so your muscles and joints are already warmed up. Performing extra warm-up sets here mostly wastes your energy. A feeler set is sufficient. Light load, 1 to 2 reps to check engagement and technique. Save energy for working sets that drive adaptation. Yeah, you'll really struggle. And that's why people hit like a plateau where they're like, I can't lift any heavier on the leg press. And I'll look into the training and they're trying to hit 120 kilos and their warm-up sets are 100 kilos. And I'll say, no, warm up with 40 kilos. And they go, well, I won't feel ready. Well, you will. And then boom, can hit 140 kilos, can progress, can progressive overload, which is the key factor, what we all wanting to do. Leg press example. Again, I know this is a little bit complex, so don't worry too much. So if I was getting on the leg press, my warm-up set, my set 1 would be 40 kilos. I do 8 to 10 reps, nice and light, focus on form and muscle engagement. My set 2 would be 50 kilos, 10 to 12 reps, slightly heavier, prepared muscles and joints. And then I can double it. Yeah, I'm prepared, I'm ready to go, I'm not fatigued. 90 kg, maintain stimulus, push for hypertrophy, and then I might do a second heavy set, so it's going to go heavier. I'm going to drop down my weight because I physically wouldn't be able to get more than 12 reps out with that weight anyway. Heavy, strength focused approach, mechanical fatigue, and then something called a back off or a finisher set. Some of you have got these, some of you haven't. There's a lot of confusion around this. This is just basically where you reduce the load, you maintain the tension, and you finish the muscle. The reason why these are so amazing, say you get to set 2 here, 110 kilos, you hit 7 reps, you've hit absolute failure, you couldn't push another rep out. Most people would move on to the next exercise. What is a really good technique is doing a back off or a drop set or a finisher set, whatever you want to call it. You reduce the load, so we're reducing the load to 60 kilos, and you're pushing more reps out. You're pushing past the point of fatigue. Amazing for hypertrophy, amazing for your muscle adaptation. So you can carry on lifting, but you just take some weight off the machine. And as you can see with these sets here, does that anywhere say 4 times 8 to 10? No. But obviously, when it comes to beginners and when it comes to group coaching, it will be a little bit different. But if you understand the concept, then if you've got 4 times 8 to 10 in your program, you can say, right, first 2 sets can be nice light warm-up sets. I'm going to do a heavy set. I'm going to hit 10 reps. I'm going to increase my load. I might hit 8 reps. You've still stuck to the same 8 to 10 for structure, but it's the way that you've approached it. It's been very, very different, which is going to help you. Warm-up sets activate, they don't pre-fatigue. Working sets are where adaptation happens. Back off sets add volume safely. So you're adding more volume without injuring yourself, and it's going to focus on muscle engagement throughout. That's leg press example. Working sets. So these are working sets. These are the sets that we're training hard in. These create the stimulus. They're performed close to failure, requires focus and intent, quality over quantity. You should not be able to think about anything else in that moment than what you are doing. If you're thinking about what you're having for tea, you're not working hard enough. Yeah, your brain should not be able to capacitate going anywhere else. And I will show you some videos of me training. Mechanical failure. Mechanical failure is when you cannot complete another rep. Form breaks down to fatigue. This is where adaptation occurs, and it's not the same as pain or discomfort. It is worse. If you are in discomfort, you are not at mechanical failure. I would say 80% of women do not train anywhere near mechanical failure. Yeah. And I know because I see training videos every single day of my life. I've coached over 400 women in the gym and some people who've been training for years. You will not progress if you do not hit within a couple of reps of mechanical failure. Otherwise, you just maintain in muscle mass, especially as a woman, because it's so hard for us to build muscle. So your form's going to break down. Like, I don't want people doing, if you form shit, like you stop before you form shit, that's mechanical failure. You can no longer complete another rep with good form. You physically cannot move the weight again. And it's mechanical failure is a mental battle. It's nothing to do with your physical ability. Anyone can work to mechanical failure. Yeah, I could work to mechanical failure trying to bicep curl this bottle, which I've still got here, guys. I told you to get everywhere with me. Um, so I'll show you some videos and show you different kind of rates. Drop sets and back off sets. This is just for people who have these in the program. You need to reduce the weight. If you see a D on your fourth set, reduce the weight, continue reps. Increase total stimulus without heavy load. It's an advanced tool. It's not necessarily required for a beginner. I will see it so much where I've got a client, let's say someone fairly new, two working sets and a drop off set or a back off set. For example, set one might be 10 kilos for 10 reps, then they might do 10 kilos for 12 reps, and in the back off set, they do 10 kilos for 15 reps. Because on the drop set, it says 12 to 15 rep range. So I'll say to them, well, you're not working hard enough. And they go, well, how? I said, well, your third set where you should be most fatigued, you're getting the most reps out on the same amount of load. And it's because clients are so in the head about hitting that rep range that they'll push themselves harder because they need to get over 12 reps. And I said, well, clearly you can lift heavier because how are you doing 10 kilos for 10, 10 kilos for 10, and then 10 kilos for 15 in your third set? You're not lifting heavy enough. I can see that. Yeah. So stop worrying so much about the rep range and actually think about, am I lifting heavy enough? Am I reaching my capacity here? Um, we complicate things further, guys. We complicate things further. Reverse pyramid examples. Some of you might have these as well. So reverse pyramid, imagine it's a reverse pyramid. So this is a pyramid, this is a reverse pyramid. We're starting heaviest at the top and we're dropping weight down as we go. Brilliant for certain exercises. Leg press is a brilliant example because if you do your heaviest set first, imagine how much more power and execution you're going to get rather than doing your heaviest set last. Biceps, for example, which I'm giving you here, biceps fatigue very quickly. Why? Because they're a very small muscle. What should we do? Well, we maybe do the heaviest set first because we're going to get fatigue. So there's lots of different sets, ways that we can program for every different muscle. I could talk to you about 8 hours about programming, but I'm just giving you some examples here so maybe you can understand if you do want to program yourself. But if we're looking at the bicep curl, we might want a feeler set. Do we need to warm up biceps? No, very small muscle. We might just want to do one set just to feel the engagement, make sure we're not completely cold. Majority of the time, you're never starting your workout with a bicep curl. Yeah, on your upper days, they're usually in your last couple of exercises. So if we're looking at a bicep curl, this is how I would usually like to program it. Set one, might do 10 kilos for 12 reps. Heaviest set, push close to failure. Set two, we do 10 kilos again, but we only get 10 reps. Why? Because we've naturally fatigued a little bit. Slightly fewer reps due to fatigue, maintain tension. What we're best off doing now, because our reps are dropping, is increasing the load. So increasing the rep range and dropping the load. So we've dropped down to 8 kilos and now we've got 12 to 15 reps. We've dropped the weight as the muscles are fatigued and we've got maximum volume. Again, so this is what we would call a reverse pyramid. So we start in heavy, we drop in the weight as fatigue accumulates. That's the reverse pyramid principle. It ensures maximum load for strength first, then volume for hypertrophy, helps push past failure safely without sacrificing form. Because bicep curls get really like people start swinging. You've seen all the gym bros in the gym swinging the whole back. Yeah, bullshit. Or like swinging, pushing the whole body for tricep extensions because they're fatiguing quickly. Drop the load, maintain good form, push higher rep volume. It's ideal for small muscles, bicep, triceps, and shoulders. It also really, really helps for movements that you cannot progress past. So if you cannot get heavier on a leg press, try a reverse pyramid example, and it'll help you push past that. The non-negotiables. We have to progressive overload. And somebody asked this the other week. I think Sally answered a question. But when you're on your app, guys, under the video, you've got the exercise. There is a little tick with a circle around it. You click that and it will bring up your exercise history on that exercise. Every single week, we should be aiming to beat it by weight or reps. because that's the thing, that's what we measure. Yeah. You're not necessarily going to beat it every week, but if you got 11 re reps last week, you should be aiming for 12. If your sets look like, say you got 3 sets and it's 12 to 15 reps, say if they look like 10 kilos times 15, 10 times 15, 10 times 15, what do you think you need to do? Increase the bloody weight because you're at the high end of the rep range. Yeah, so progressive overload. So you've got 10 kilos, 12 to 15 reps, and you're doing 10, 15, 10, 15, 10, 15. Why go up to 12 kilos? And then you might get 14 reps out. You keep using 12 kilos, so you get 15 reps out. Then you go up to 14 kilos. That is essentially progressive overload. We're trying to hit the high end of the rep range. But if we're hitting it consistently, what we're doing, we're just maintaining muscle. We're not progressing. Muscle is only going to adapt to the increase in demand. We need to increase the demand. The same workout, the same body. Progress must be planned, not accidental. That's why programming counts, having a structure counts, having a coach counts, going in and doing random workouts will, again, never help you. Biggest mistake, changing programs too frequently. Many clients switch programs too often and it's going to stall your progress and adaptation. I've got a client, I won't name her, she's not on here actually, so we can bitch about her. No, I'm only joking. And when she first came into one-to-one, every like 3 weeks, she was like, when's my new training program? When's my new training program? I was like, well, we've got another bloody 8 weeks on this, so you better get used to it because she was so used to like doing gym classes and having so much different stuff all the time. She felt like a level of boredom from doing the same thing all the time. Why am I switching your guys' training programs after 4 weeks? So you don't get bloody bored, not bloody leave the process. It's not beneficial to be changing a training program after 4 weeks. But obviously, hopefully, with this new information, it'll make you train better in your last 4 week block anyway. But when we're thinking of long-term programming, I will have clients 12 to 16 weeks. I have a different program, training program, twice per year. Mainly because I ain't got bloody time to program myself, but 24 weeks I will do a training program for. For clients, one-to-one clients, it's every 8 to 12 weeks I'll change it, mainly because to keep them happy, not because it's necessarily beneficial. And certain clients who listen to me, Salia, again, she listens to me, she'll be on a, I don't think you've ever asked for your program switching, have you, Salia? But we reprogrammed you, I think, after 16 weeks. So yeah, the longer you're on a program, unless you are getting big major stalls or you're absolutely hating your life, stay on it as long as you can. Yeah. Minimum 8 weeks to see real results. Only change if progress stops or evolves. Again, I typically adjust programs every 8 to 16 weeks. Purpose, maintain enjoyment and motivation, not because the old program stopped working. In Elevate, I change after 4 weeks to ensure enjoyment, not because this is optimal. I don't want everyone saying, oh, she had me on the same program for 8 weeks and give me 1-star Facebook review. I'm just kidding. Why having a coach is vital for progress. Again, it ensures you continue progressing safely and effectively, provides feedback on technique, weekly check-ins, video submissions. Sorry, I know I speak about one-to-one quite a bit in here, but everyone sends form videos in a week. So, sorry, Sally, I can see you again, but Sally sends 8 videos every single week. I think every single week since she started. So she's probably had about 120 movements reviewed from me. And it changes the trajectory of what I decide to program her, what I know she's good at and what I know needs improving. I can see her squat, and then obviously she had ankle mobility. I'm like telling everyone Sally is dirt. She had ankle mobility issues. So, I looked and said, right, we'll do a forward foot facing quad dominant Smith machine squat because I could see her ankles and what would work for her and how I would help her develop. Again, I correct execution and I adjust load, and it avoids the trial and error approach most people fall into. For example, like she was getting a pain in one of her movements. So I said, right, let's drop the load, let's do body weight for a couple of weeks. And then we re-added the load in, weight, like pain went away. Really, really important when it comes to training so I can visually see you. Again, you need to stick a program long enough to adapt and grow. If you're constantly changing your program, you won't build muscle. Progress is consistency and correct execution and measured adjustments. Not just thinking, oh, just going, oh, shoulder press is free, I'll do that. Oh, leg press is free, I'll do that. No. How to progressive overload. We can increase the weight, very obvious. We can increase the reps. We can increase the sets, which I'm not necessarily going to do that because obviously you've got a fixed program. Improve tempo or control. An improvement in form is a way of progressive overload. Yeah, I've got a client at the moment come to me, ex-professional rugby league player, very, very like quick and heavy and fast and very strong at her movements. I've had to literally deload all her weights by like 50% to focus on tempo and control and retrain her how to lift properly. Just because we're removing the weight doesn't mean we're not progressive overloading because we're improving the form and the tempo. Reducing rest time, don't want anyone to do that. Improve technique at the same load. We need to be doing one of these on every single exercise a week. For most of you, the easiest thing is A, increase weight because you won't be lifting heavy enough. And then once you've increased the weight, increase reps. Really, really simple. Check what you did last week. Even one extra rep is progressive overload. Understanding tempo in training. There's a whole video on my Instagram about tempo training on the RDL, so go watch that. But this is the speed at which a repetition is performed. Eccentric is the lowering, concentric is the lifting, and the pause phases. So control muscle tension, engagement, and time under load. It impacts strength, hypertrophy, and mind to muscle connection. Yeah, I'll just stand up and I'll just show you the difference, right? Because this is how most people would do, let's say, a Romanian deadlift. So how much muscle do you think I would build if I did this? Compared to, can you see the difference? I'm under load for a longer period of time. So that second rep, I'm under load for, let's say, 5 to 7 seconds. The first rep, I was under load for 2 to 3 seconds. Under load for longer is going to create what? More muscle, more tension, more hypertrophy. When it comes to, again, one-on-one clients, we do tempo training. So there'll be an amount of seconds that they need to go down into the movement, an amount of seconds they need to pause at the bottom movement, and an amount of seconds they need to come up from the movement, an amount of seconds they need to pause between reps. It's a 4-digit number. If you Google it, it's a 4-digit number. You can go learn about it. But tempo is very, very important. What I would say, if I saw all you train tomorrow, I would probably say to every single person that they're training too fast. Just slow it down. Yeah. Eccentric is a lowering the weight. So for example, if we've got an RDL, the eccentric part of the phase, what would it be? This going down. The obviously this muscles lengthen under tension. So if you think about it, guys, when I'm going down, my glutes and my hamstrings are lengthening. That's the lengthening part of the position. Yeah. A concentric is when I'm lifting the weight. So my eccentric, if it's 3 to 4 seconds, which it should be for a Romanian deadlift, you'd go 4, 3, 2, 1, pause, because this is where I'm under the most tension. 1, 2, up. Deep breath. 4, 3, 2, 1. Yeah, you have to count in your head. So really consider your movement pattern, your eccentric, your concentric, the place in which your muscles are shortened and the place in which your muscles are lengthened. You don't need to worry too much at this stage because, again, we're only in the couple of weeks in the group, but it's worth considering the speed in which you are lifting because it makes a huge difference. The power of pauses. Pausing at the bottom of the top of the movement increases time under tension. TUT, you might hear me call out on videos. It prevents momentum from doing the work. It improves control and joint stability and mind to muscle connection. Example, if you're pausing at the bottom of a deadlift or a bench press. If we take the shoulder press, your shoulders are under the most tension when you are in, so this position here, yeah? You can see my shoulders under tension. If I was doing shoulder press like that, can you see my shoulders are literally not engaged compared to 4, 3, 2, 1, pause, drive, compared to, can you see the difference? You can literally see I've not literally got any load in my hand. And that's why we need to consider pauses, we need to consider tension and not just be throwing our movements about. Why going too fast impacts results? Fast reps equals momentum carries the weight, less muscle engagement, reduces time under tension. Again, the longer you're under tension, the better. Can increase risk of injury due to loss of control. Slow controlled movements maximize activation and adaptation. Yeah. Practical tempo guidelines. This is what everyone should be using as an overall guideline. When it comes to advanced programming, if a client is stalling on a certain movement, I might change the tempo as a way for them to be able to improve that movement. But if we're thinking about just generally hypertrophy, 3 to 4 second eccentric, lowering, RDL, 3, 2, 1, pause. Yeah. If it's a lat pull down, this is the concentric, this is the eccentric. Yeah. So we might go 1, 2, pause, 4, 3, 2, 1, stretch, and then back down, bang. It's a contrasting tempo. 0 to 1 second pause. You should all really be creating some type of pause in the concentric part of the movement. So like I said, if it was the shoulder press, it was obviously coming here where the point's on tension. Strength focus, slightly faster concentric and controlled eccentric, and accessory lifts are going to be moderate tempo, prioritizing form and engagement. For example, if we're looking at a bicep curl, You might have 1, 2 seconds down, 1 second pause, and 1 second up. Yeah, I don't want you to concern yourselves with it too much, guys. But obviously just consider your tempo when you're doing movements and how slow you're doing them. Example, I'm just going to play you this video. Hopefully,
Well, we're going through your proper concentric.
sorry guys, I'm just going to play this video. I don't know why it's not pausing. This is basically what a double drop set or working to failure should actually look like from me training on the Smith machine shoulder press.
I'll drive all the way down through your proper concentric. Deep breath in. Hold and drive. 2. 4. 4. 5. I need to get more than 6. Oh shit, no, that's 5. No, no. Wow. Yeah. Oh. So,
What I'm just basically trying to explain here is that I'm doing a rest pause set and then I will go in again.
A rest pause set. Basically takes your muscles, obviously way past failure. And again, rest for another 15. You turn it out so you can get out. Again, you should be out of breath, guys. Right, on that.
So do you see what I mean? So obviously I know the audio is a little bit bad on that because it's recording through, but that was a failure. I tried to attempt that rep and I couldn't. So what I've done there, I've done a working set, I've rested for 15 seconds, I've gone again, I've rested for 15 seconds and I've gone again. So my reps might look like 10, then I might get 4 out, then I might get 2 out. I'm pushing myself to absolute failure. Yeah. And that's what your last couple of reps should look like. So that's a drop set and that is what failure should look like. And it's, again, all that is just mental. It's nothing to do with physical. And if you're getting to the end of your set, and for example, you're like, oh God, that was hard, put it down. Can you see the difference in me literally not being able to press it and having to lock it on? Yeah, so that is the difference. So tempo matters as much as load for hypertrophy and strength. Slow, controlled reps are going to maximize results. Pauses increase tension and more growth and control. Avoid rushing movements. It's going to be less effective and higher risk of injury. Focus on muscle engagement over moving weight. So that is what failure looks like. I'm going to show you what different types of rep ranges look like for failure rates. So how to know when you've hit failure? Your reps are going to slow down dramatically. Those last couple of reps of that shoulder press, I wasn't like that, was I? I was like, oh shit, I can't. Like I really tried. It's good. Obviously, you're going to have a burning sensation. You know another rep would fail. You'll know mentally that you could not get another rep, but that comes with over time. You know when you've hit failure. RPE 8 to 10, I'll talk about RPE in a minute, rate perceived of exertion, and not quitting because it's uncomfortable. Someone once said to me, when it starts hurting, that's when you should start counting your reps. Yeah, not from when it doesn't. So making sure we're hitting failure. This is what 4 to 6 RII, 4 to 6 RII, RIR, why can't I ever say that? This means reps in reserve. So if you look at this set here, this is how most people would finish their set. Is it hurting? Is it a bit uncomfortable? Yes. I'm nowhere near failure. This is just a warm-up set. Most people would finish there. That would class that as a working set. This is just a warm-up. So I could do 4 to 6 more reps comfortably. Even though it's hurting, I'm nowhere near failure. This is just getting my muscles engaged. So it's hurting, it's uncomfortable, but I'm pausing there because I'm trying to save a little bit of energy in the tank for a working set. Most people would say that would be training till failure. It's nowhere near, yeah? So that's why I've just popped some visuals in here to show you. This is what 1 to 2 reps in reserve looks like. Is it hurting? Yeah. Am I struggling? Yeah. I'm nowhere near failure though. When I finish this set, Could I have pushed 1 to 2 more reps out? Yes. People would see that and say, oh yeah, God, that hurts us working to failure. Look, I'm in pain and misery. Yeah, it's not, this is still not where we should be for a working set. This is my second to heaviest set. So I'm pushing hard, but I'm still leaving 1 or 2 reps in reserve. It's not working to failure. This is what failure looks like. So these are assisted reps. So you'll see my hand will come down in a minute and I'll help pull. I cannot physically lift that weight. So I'm just giving myself a little bit of an assist, which is a bit more of an advanced thing to do, I guess, just to really push that muscle beyond failure. But I physically can't get that load out without doing a bit of an assisted rep. Most women will never train. They'll just train to a point that it hurts. And this is why I'm hammering it down, guys, because have I got the most muscular physique in the world? No, and I've been training like this for a very, very long time. RP scale explained. RP 6, you've got 4 reps left, 7, 3 reps left, 8, 2 reps left, 9, 1 rep left, 10, absolute failure. Most occurs in 8 to 9, so between 8 and 10 range here. You'll still make growth if you've still got 1 or 2 reps in reserve. You will not make growth if you're doing tricep extensions like I showed you before, where you've got loads of energy left in the tank. It won't build muscle. Why classes are not strength training? There's no progressive overload, limited rest, random sequencing. You're focusing on fatigue, not adaptation. It's great for movement, not muscle. Yeah, I'm a class hater. I am. I used to be a class teacher and I still hated them. I used to tell all the people, you wasted your time coming to my classes. How muscle is actually built. Training creates microscopic tears. This is the signal. Nutrition and rest provide the materials, and growth happens during recovery. Yeah, we're not building muscle when we're in the gym. We build the muscle when we're out of the gym. Why is sleep non-negotiable? Training creates microscopic tears or tears. Is that tears or tears, or is it spelled the same way? I don't know. This is a signal. Nutrition and rest provide materials. Growth happens during recovery. 8 hours is ideal. 7 minimum. Anything under that, you will be struggling. You'll be on the struggle bus. ATP and energy systems. ATP is an immediate energy. We need to jump over a puddle. Yeah, we need to run away from someone. That's ATP. Strength training is going to use ATP and then it's going to use glycogen, carbohydrate. Depleting glycogen increases fat usage later. We deplete the glycogen first and then we go into fat oxidation. So cardio after strength taps into fat oxidation. So get your steps in after your strength training. Really beneficial. Why 3 times per week works best? Muscles need recovery to grow. Women recover faster than men. Training each muscle 2 times per week is optimal. 3 days allows intensity, but it also allows recovery. And there's a higher chance of adherence. It's perfect. Most people think, oh God, it's not enough. It's not enough. It is. Yeah, plenty. Program splits I use for clients. Upper, lower, full. Why? We train upper twice, we train lower twice in the full. Full, 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 especially for beginners. Why? Because they're not training hard enough to need all that recovery. Covers all movement patterns, flexible, sustainable, and effective. Again, I've got quite a few people in one-to-one who are on 4 times per week. We might do a posterior day, push-pull day, things like that, a bit more advanced. But for you guys, this is still really optimal. Muscle recovery in women, it's faster due to estrogen, better fatigue resistance, can handle higher volume, needs consistency, not extremes. And how to build a program for a beginner. For a beginner, I would choose compound list first. Why? Because it's highest energy output, so it requires the most energy required. So that's why we can do them first. For engagement or advanced clients, I will do accessories first. I know that sounds a bit counterproductive, but for me, for example, if I'm doing a shoulder press, I might do a lat raise first because my lat raise is going to help warm up my shoulders. So I don't need to do loads of warm-up sets because I don't want to create loads of fatigue. Yeah? Add accessories second, ensure adequate split between muscle groups. We don't want to be doing leg press on Monday and bloody Romanian deadlift on Tuesday because we haven't recovered from the leg press. Yeah? Track performance weekly, progress intentionally. Every program, and don't do all your workouts back to back. Final takeaways. Strength changes your metabolism. Cardio supports fat loss, it doesn't drive it. Muscle is the goal. Recovery is part of training, and consistency will always be intensity. Thank you. Is there any questions on this? I know I've just absolutely stormed through that as quick as I could because there was quite a lot to cover, but has anyone got any questions, confusion they want to share that I can answer, I will stop the record. Any takeaways, anything that was